Do you ever seen a narcissist completely lose control without you saying a single word? It happens the moment a super empath finally wakes up, levels up, and walks away with a glow so powerful it almost feels supernatural. And what comes next is the kind of silent torture no narcissist is ever prepared for. Because the very energy they once fed on is now the same energy that exposes their weakness, their fear, and their hidden emptiness. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how a super empath's glow-up becomes the narcissist's worst nightmare. Not through revenge, not through anger, but through evolution. Stay with me till the end, because once you understand these shifts, you will never look at your own healing the same way again. And before we dive in, if you've ever been underestimated, drained, or emotionally played by a narcissist, hit subscribe. Not for me, but so you never forget the power you're stepping into. And drop a comment telling me one thing you outgrew that they thought would destroy you. Your story might be the light someone else needs today. Emotional detachment is the moment everything changes for a super empath, not because they stop caring about life or love, but because they stop caring about the chaos the narcissist tries to create. This shift doesn't happen instantly. It happens after countless cycles of manipulation, blame shifting, broken promises, and emotional exhaustion. One day, the super empath simply wakes up and realizes they no longer feel the same pull toward the narcissist's drama. Their heart no longer jumps at the narcissist's messages. Their mind no longer spirals trying to figure out what they did wrong. Their spirit no longer bends to keep the peace. And this calm, steady detachment becomes the blow that breaks the narcissist's ego more than any confrontation ever could. Because the narcissist's entire sense of power depends on getting an emotional reaction. Their anger needs your fear. Their guilt trips need your shame. Their lies need your confusion. Their fake apologies need your hope. But when a super empath detaches, all of these weapons fall flat. The narcissist rages, and the empath stays calm. The narcissist provokes, and the empath doesn't respond. The narcissist demands attention, and the empath doesn't give it. The narcissist acts wounded, and the empath no longer rushes in to heal them. Nothing works, nothing triggers, nothing lands. And this drives the narcissist into a quiet kind of panic, the kind they hide behind forced confidence and loud anger. Because for the first time, their emotional hooks aren't hooking anything. Their manipulation has no effect. Their usual control has disappeared. The empath's internal shift breaks the narcissist's illusion of dominance, and the calmness itself becomes the loudest message. You don't own my emotions anymore. This calm hits harder than shouting, harder than arguments, harder than explanations. It exposes how fragile the narcissist truly is, because without emotional chaos, they have no script. Without emotional reactions, they have no power. And without emotional access, they have no identity in the relationship. The narcissist sees the empath's emotional detachment as abandonment, rejection, humiliation, and defeat, all at once. Their ego cracks because the empath is no longer affected. The narcissist's rage grows louder, but the empath's calm grows stronger. And nothing tortures a narcissist more than someone who no longer feels anything toward them. This is where the super empath becomes truly untouchable. Not because they harden, but because they heal. They reclaim their energy. They reclaim their clarity. They reclaim themselves. And the narcissist is left facing the painful truth they never wanted to confront. The empath they thought they owned was the one thing they were never strong enough to keep. There comes a moment in every empath's life when something inside finally snaps. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in clarity. A moment when the super empath suddenly understands what the narcissist never wanted them to realize. They don't have to explain themselves anymore. They don't have to defend their truth, justify their feelings, or prove their worth to someone who was never listening in the first place. And this silent shift, this calm withdrawal of emotional energy, becomes the very thing that terrifies the narcissist the most. Because narcissists survive on reactions. Your tears, your confusion, your need to fix things, your desire to be understood. Every explanation you gave was fuel. Every argument you tried to resolve was supply. Every attempt to be heard was a gift straight into their ego. But when a super empath stops engaging, the entire dynamic collapses. Suddenly, the narcissist is standing in front of a mirror with no one to blame, no one to provoke, and no one to dominate. They feel the silence like an earthquake, because for the first time they can't access your emotions, your warmth, or the attention they once drained so easily. They try their old tricks: guilt, anger, fake sadness, sudden affection, twisted stories. But nothing lands, nothing works. The super empath's silence is not coldness, it's evolution. It's the quiet realization that they no longer owe the narcissist a response. And this silent shift cuts deeper than shouting ever could, because it exposes a truth the narcissist has avoided their entire life. Without control, they are empty. Without supply, they are powerless. Without your emotional reactions, they have no identity to latch onto. The empath's silence becomes a mirror, showing them everything they've tried to hide: the fear, the insecurity, the lack of self, the deep inner chaos. And while the narcissist panics, the super empath feels something new, something almost sacred: peace. The kind of peace that doesn't need to defend itself because it finally understands its own value. The empath no longer tries to fix the unfixable. They no longer beg for honesty from someone who thrives on deception. They no longer break themselves to hold together a relationship built on manipulation. Instead, they rise quietly, and that quiet rise becomes the narcissist's internal collapse. The silence says, "I see who you are. I understand what you did, and I'm done giving you access to the parts of me you tried to destroy." This is why the silent shift is so terrifying, because it proves the empath was never weak. They were just gentle. And once that gentle heart learns to protect itself, there is no greater force. The narcissist feels the loss long before the empath even realizes their own power. And in that silence, the roles finally reverse. The empath heals, the narcissist breaks. There is something almost magical about the moment a super empath begins to heal, a moment the narcissist never sees coming and never knows how to handle. After months or years of being drained, doubted, criticized, and manipulated, the empath slowly rises back into their own light. And this glow-up, this inner and outer transformation, becomes the one thing the narcissist cannot control, cannot reduce, and cannot dim. It starts quietly, with the empath choosing themselves again. They rest, they reflect, they rebuild their confidence. They begin eating better, sleeping better, speaking kinder to themselves. Their eyes brighten, their smile returns, their energy gets lighter. Their mind clears, their intuition sharpens, and their heart becomes wiser. Little by little, they become the version of themselves the narcissist tried so hard to break. And nothing triggers a narcissist more than witnessing the very soul they tried to crush become stronger, brighter, and freer without them. The narcissist expected the empath to fall apart permanently, to lose their spark, to stay wounded, to live in confusion and self-doubt. But instead, the empath rises, higher than before, stronger than before, more grounded than before. The narcissist sees the glow and instantly feels something they never admit out loud: deep insecurity. Because your glow-up is a mirror reflecting everything they lack: empathy, growth, accountability, depth, love. Your happiness exposes their emptiness. Your healing reveals their sickness. Your confidence highlights their insecurity. And your peace destroys their illusion of control. This glow-up becomes torture for the narcissist because they realize two painful truths: they did not break you, and they no longer matter. They watch you succeed in ways they never imagined. You begin forming healthier friendships, pursuing your dreams, reconnecting with your passions, and choosing environments that nurture you instead of draining you. Your energy shifts so powerfully that people around you feel it. Doors open, blessings flow, opportunities appear. You become magnetic. Meanwhile, the narcissist feels smaller, weaker, and more irrelevant with every step you take forward. They try to pretend they don't notice, but they notice everything. They watch silently, obsessively, hoping for signs that your glow is fake or temporary. But it's not. It's real, it's permanent, it's earned, and it came from healing wounds they caused. The narcissist can't control it, can't stop it, can't reverse it, and this powerlessness eats at them. Your glow becomes a reminder that their manipulation failed, their disrespect failed, their mind games failed. Their attempts to dim your spirit failed. You grew anyway. You healed anyway. You rose anyway. And that rise is what tortures them, not because you did anything to hurt them, but because you simply became what they never wanted you to become: whole without them. This is the glow they can't control, the glow that frees you, and the glow that destroys their ego in the process. There comes a turning point when a super empath finally learns the power of boundaries. Real boundaries, the kind that are firm, clear, and unbreakable. And when these boundaries go up, everything the narcissist once relied on collapses. Because narcissists function on one belief: that they own your emotions, your time, your energy, your compassion, your attention. They expect access to you at any moment, even after hurting you, even after disrespecting you. They believe they have the right to walk into your peace whenever they want and leave chaos behind. But when a super empath heals, they begin building a wall, not out of anger, but out of deep self-respect. They stop answering every message instantly. They stop saying yes out of guilt. They stop apologizing for things they didn't do. They stop explaining why they need space. They stop allowing emotional dumping, guilt trips, late-night manipulation, and sudden emergencies that always revolve around the narcissist's needs. The empath learns to say no, and that one small word becomes the biggest shock the narcissist has ever felt. These boundaries are not loud or dramatic. They are calm, steady, and consistent. And that consistency is what breaks the narcissist's illusion of ownership. Suddenly they can't get through. Their insults don't work. Their fake tears don't work. Their charm doesn't work. Their threats don't work. Their guilt trips don't work. Every tactic that once controlled the empath falls flat. The narcissist realizes they are no longer dealing with the same person. They are facing a stronger, wiser, centered version of the empath who now protects their energy with everything they have. And this destroys the narcissist's ego because boundaries feel like rejection to them. They feel like disrespect. They feel like abandonment. They feel like punishment. But the truth is, boundaries are none of those things. They're simply a form of self-love the narcissist never expected the empath to develop. The narcissist tries to climb the walls with anger, manipulation, sudden affection, or pretending to change, but nothing gets through. These new boundaries are built from lessons, heartbreaks, disappointments, and deep self-realization. They are built from every moment the empath was drained, lied to, or made to feel small. And because of that, these walls are too high, too strong, and too sacred for the narcissist to ever climb again. The narcissist begins to feel powerless because the access they once took for granted is gone. They can no longer enter the empath's mind, influence their emotions, or control their decisions. For the first time, they are outside the walls, looking in, and the empath is not waiting, not bending, not breaking. And this is the ultimate shift. The empath is finally protecting the space the narcissist once invaded freely. Those walls aren't just physical or emotional, they are spiritual. They protect the empath's peace, their growth, their future. And nothing terrifies a narcissist more than realizing they no longer have the key. There is a moment in every super empath's journey when they finally understand the true source of a narcissist's power, their energy. Not their kindness, not their forgiveness, not their hope, but their energy. Their emotional responses, their compassion, their attempts to fix, heal, and understand. The narcissist doesn't bond with people, they feed off people. Your attention becomes their oxygen. Your reactions become their fuel. Your empathy becomes their lifeline. And once a super empath realizes this, the entire dynamic flips. They stop giving explanations. They stop defending themselves. They stop seeking closure from someone incapable of honesty. They stop reacting to the games, the lies, the triangulation, the sudden affection, and the manufactured crises. They stop pouring emotional energy into someone who sees them only as a source and never as a human. This moment, the moment the supply stops, becomes the narcissist's internal collapse. Not because the empath is trying to hurt them, but because the empath is finally trying to heal themselves. For a narcissist, losing supply feels like suffocation. They experience it as humiliation, abandonment, betrayal, and fear all at once. They don't process it like a healthy person would. They don't reflect, grow, or ask themselves what they did wrong. Instead, they panic. They feel the beginning of what psychologists call the narcissistic injury, a deep emotional wound that forms when their ego is denied the validation it depends on. The empath's sudden silence becomes the trigger. The narcissist senses the shift instantly. They can feel that the empath's energy is no longer pointed toward them. They feel the withdrawal, the distance, the peace. They feel that the empath no longer reacts to their anger or melts at their tears. And this loss of control shakes them at their core. Because without your energy, the narcissist is forced to face what they have spent their entire life avoiding: their emptiness. It begins with confusion. They try to provoke you, gently at first. A message, a memory, a random "I miss you" or "I've been thinking." When that doesn't work, they shift to guilt. They bring up old promises, shared secrets, emotional vulnerabilities. When guilt fails, they try anger, accusations, projection, blame, twisting the story to make you look like the villain. But the empath stays distant, calm, no longer pulled into the emotional web. The narcissist feels this as rejection, and rejection is the wound they cannot tolerate. It threatens the foundation of their false self, the fragile identity they built on manipulation, praise, and dominance. Without your emotional input, the narcissist begins to unravel. Soon, anger turns into desperation. They start cycles of love bombing, promises of change, sudden acts of kindness that feel out of character. But the super empath sees through these tactics now. The empath is finally awake. They understand the difference between real love and emotional bait. And that awareness alone starves the narcissist even more. Because supply is not just energy, it is belief. It is the empath believing the narcissist's illusions, excuses, and fake vulnerability. When the belief dies, the supply dies, and when the supply dies, the narcissist experiences an internal collapse they cannot hide. This collapse is not dramatic on the outside. They rarely admit it. They mask it with confidence, arrogance, new relationships, sudden success, or a busy social life. But inside, they feel panic. They feel the cracks forming. They feel the ego they built so carefully starting to crumble. The narcissistic injury begins to burn, a deep, hollow ache that tells them they have lost something they cannot replace. They try to convince themselves that they never needed the empath, never cared about the connection, never depended on the attention. But the truth haunts them. You were their strongest supply. You were the one who understood, tolerated, forgave, loved, and gave endlessly. Losing you means losing the emotional battery that powered their entire act. And while the narcissist spirals, something incredible happens to the super empath. They begin to regain the energy they didn't even know they were losing. They sleep better. They breathe easier. Their mind clears. Their emotions stabilize. Their self-esteem rises. Their intuition sharpens. Their spirit feels lighter. They reclaim all the pieces of themselves that were drained by the narcissist's constant need for attention and validation. The empath discovers a powerful truth. Once they stop feeding the narcissist, they finally start feeding themselves. This internal shift changes everything. The empath begins living again, not surviving. They reconnect with hobbies, dreams, friendships, and routines that were pushed aside. They feel joy in small moments, peace in silence, and gratitude in solitude. They begin glowing from within, radiating a strength the narcissist hoped they'd never find. And the narcissist feels this glow like a slap to their ego, because nothing hurts them more than seeing the person they tried to break rise higher without them. No more energy supply becomes more than a boundary. It becomes a spiritual transformation. The empath stops being the narcissist's emotional host and starts being their own healer. They stop absorbing the narcissist's pain and start releasing their own. They stop living in emotional survival mode and start living in emotional freedom. And this freedom is what destroys the narcissist's illusion of control forever. The narcissist realizes, sometimes slowly, sometimes instantly, that they lost the one person who genuinely cared for them, the one person who tried to love them beyond their wounds, the one person who could have been a safe place if they hadn't chosen destruction over connection. And this realization becomes their private torture, because they know they cannot replace an empath's depth, loyalty, kindness, or emotional intelligence. They can find new faces, new bodies, new distractions, but they cannot find another soul like yours. They cannot find another heart that would give as deeply or forgive as softly. This is the true power of starving the narcissist of energy. You don't punish them with cruelty or revenge. You punish them with your absence, with your healing, with your peace, with your glow-up, with your regained identity. And nothing destroys a narcissist faster than watching the person they thought they owned become someone they can never reach again. In the end, the super empath doesn't hurt the narcissist through harm, they hurt them through evolution. They rise, they heal, they detach, and the narcissist is left facing the most painful truth of all. They lost access to the very soul that once kept them alive. There comes a moment in an empath's journey when something sacred shifts inside them, something the narcissist never expects and cannot prepare for: self-respect. It doesn't arrive all at once. It grows quietly, through painful lessons, repeated disappointments, and the slow realization that their heart is worth more than the chaos they've been enduring. And when this self-respect finally roots itself deep inside the empath, everything the narcissist built begins to fall apart. Because the narcissist's power has never come from strength, it has always come from the empath doubting their own. Once that doubt disappears, the entire system collapses. Self-respect becomes the empath's turning point, the moment they stop accepting crumbs and start recognizing the table they deserve. It's the moment they stop justifying mistreatment, stop normalizing lies, stop bending their boundaries, stop apologizing for their truth, and stop lowering themselves to be loved. They look at their reflection and see someone worthy of honesty, consistency, gentleness, and mutual effort, things the narcissist has never been able to give. And this new awareness strips the narcissist of the one thing they always depended on: the empath's willingness to tolerate the unacceptable. Once an empath chooses self-respect, the narcissist loses the emotional leash they used to control them. All the old tactics, silent treatments, rage, guilt trips, future faking, triangulation, gaslighting, suddenly stop working. The empath sees through every manipulation, every false apology, every manufactured crisis. They no longer feel guilty for saying no. They no longer feel responsible for fixing someone who refuses to fix themselves. They no longer feel obligated to carry the emotional weight of a relationship the narcissist has never contributed to honestly. This shift is not loud. It is quiet, calm, grounded, and deeply powerful, and nothing terrifies a narcissist more. The narcissist starts sensing the change before the empath even speaks it. They feel the empath's energy pulling away, standing taller, becoming firmer. They sense that the empath is no longer emotionally available the way they once were. They try to pull them back with charm, with tears, with manipulation, with anger. But the empath's self-respect blocks every attempt like an invisible shield. And this is where the narcissist's downfall begins. Because narcissists rely heavily on the empath's softness, their empathy, their forgiveness, their desire to keep peace. When that softness is redirected inward towards self-love instead of self-sacrifice, the narcissist loses the foundation they once stood on. A self-respecting empath becomes unpredictable to the narcissist. They are no longer easily pushed, guilted, or fooled. They no longer internalize the narcissist's accusations or absorb their emotional chaos. Instead of reacting, they pause. Instead of bending, they hold firm. Instead of doubting themselves, they trust their intuition. This evolution exposes the narcissist's deepest insecurity, the fear of losing control. And for them, losing control feels like losing oxygen. The narcissist watches as the empath begins making decisions based on truth instead of fear, clarity instead of confusion, boundaries instead of guilt. They watch the empath reconnect with their hobbies, their joy, their friendships, their dreams, things the narcissist tried to dim or destroy. They watch the empath's confidence return. Their smile becomes real again. Their energy grows lighter. Their voice becomes stronger. And this glow, the glow born from self-respect, tortures the narcissist more than any revenge ever could. Because it symbolizes something the narcissist cannot imitate or steal: inner worth. Self-respect also changes the empath's perspective. They start seeing the narcissist not as an intimidating force, but as a wounded child trapped in a warped adult shell, someone who never learned love, never learned accountability, never learned self-reflection. The empath stops taking their behavior personally and starts recognizing it as a pattern, a script, a survival mechanism rooted in insecurity. And once the empath sees this clearly, the narcissist's power evaporates. You cannot fear what you finally understand. You cannot be controlled by what you no longer emotionally depend on. The narcissist, sensing this loss, often spirals into panic. They try to regain control with intensity, anger, threats, emotional breakdowns, smear campaigns, or sudden soulmate declarations. But none of it works, because the empath has found something stronger than attachment: dignity. The narcissist realizes that the person they once manipulated with ease is now someone they cannot reach at all. Their ego shatters when they see the empath prioritize their own needs, choose distance over dysfunction, and walk away from scenarios that once trapped them. This is when the narcissist experiences the true downfall, internal implosion. They are forced to face their biggest fear: insignificance. They must confront the truth that someone they believed they owned now values themselves enough to leave, and not just leave physically, but leave emotionally, mentally, spiritually. The empath's self-respect locks every door the narcissist once walked through freely. They no longer have access to the empath's mind, emotions, heart, or life. And the realization that they cannot break someone who finally knows their worth becomes unbearable. Meanwhile, the empath rises, not with arrogance, but with quiet strength. They start building a life that reflects their value. They choose relationships that nourish them. They speak their truth without fear. They trust their intuition. They give themselves the love they once begged for. They become whole, complete, grounded. And this version of the empath is the narcissist's nightmare, because an empowered empath is beyond manipulation, beyond control, beyond reach. Nothing tortures a narcissist more than watching the person they underestimated step fully into their self-worth. Nothing destroys their ego more than seeing the empath become emotionally secure, mentally strong, spiritually aligned, and completely unbothered by their old tactics. And nothing marks the narcissist's downfall more clearly than the moment the empath finally says, not with anger, but with truth, "I deserve better." Because they do. And once an empath knows their worth, the narcissist's power ends forever. There comes a point in a super empath story when something remarkable happens, something the narcissist cannot understand, cannot predict, and cannot undo. The empath's intuition sharpens to a level that cuts straight through the narcissist's illusions. It doesn't happen suddenly, it happens slowly, through countless moments of confusion that never made sense, answers that never matched the truth, apologies that never came with change, and red flags that the empath once explained away in the name of love, loyalty, or hope. One day, the empath simply sees it. They see the patterns, the manipulation, the emotional traps. They see the way the narcissist twists conversations, shifts blame, and rewrites history. They see the lies hidden beneath the tone of voice, the small details, the subtle reactions. They see the truth behind the narcissist's charm and promises, the truth behind their sudden affection, the truth behind their anger and silence. And when the empath's intuition activates at this level, the narcissist's entire strategy collapses. Because what the narcissist fears most is awareness, an empath who can no longer be fooled. Gaslighting, Once their strongest weapon becomes useless. The narcissist says, "You're remembering it wrong." And the empath thinks, "No, I see exactly what happened." The narcissist says, "You're too sensitive." And the empath hears, "You're reacting to my cruelty, and I don't want to take responsibility." The narcissist says, "You're imagining things." And the empath realizes, "I'm noticing patterns you hoped I wouldn't notice." Gaslighting loses all power the moment the empath stops doubting their own perception. A super empath begins trusting their inner knowing more than the narcissist's explanations. They trust their emotional reactions, their red flags, their instincts, their discomfort, and the subtle signals their body gives them. And once that trust is rebuilt, the narcissist's lies no longer land. The empath doesn't argue. They don't beg for clarity. They don't get confused. They simply see the lie for what it is, a tool for control. Triangulation also begins to fail. The narcissist tries to use other people's opinions to trigger insecurity, jealousy, or competition. They bring up exes, coworkers, admirers, or family members to create emotional chaos. They create stories meant to make the empath feel inferior or replaceable. But the super empath no longer reacts. They hear these comparisons and immediately sense the manipulation behind them. They recognize the narcissist is trying to create emotional imbalance. They understand that triangulation is not about the third person, it's about undermining the empath's confidence so the narcissist can regain control. And because the empath now sees it so clearly, triangulation falls flat. There is no shock, no jealousy, no emotional collapse, only clarity. And clarity is the narcissist's enemy. Guilt trips too lose their effect. The narcissist says, "After everything I've done for you," and the empath thinks, "You mean the things you used to control me?" The narcissist says, "You're the reason I act this way," and the empath hears, "I refuse to accept accountability." The narcissist says, "If you loved me, you would," and the empath realizes love is not a tool for manipulation. Once the empath stops absorbing blame that never belonged to them, guilt becomes powerless. The narcissist can no longer shape the empath's decisions through emotional pressure. The empath now stands firm in their truth, their boundaries, and their self-worth. And with that, the narcissist loses one more tool of control. What makes this shift so painful for the narcissist is not just that their lies stop working, it's that the empath stops participating in the entire emotional game. The narcissist thrives on confusion because confusion keeps people dependent. They thrive on emotional chaos because chaos hides their intentions. They thrive on self-doubt because doubt creates attachment to their approval. But when a super empath becomes awakened, they are no longer tangled in these emotional traps. They see through them with sharp, unmistakable clarity. They respond with calm instead of confusion. They ask questions instead of shutting down. They observe instead of reacting. They detach instead of absorbing. The narcissist feels this shift instantly, and it terrifies them, because their carefully crafted illusion starts cracking under the weight of the empath's awareness. When the empath's intuition sharpens, something else happens, a spiritual awakening. The empath begins feeling the narcissist's intentions before they are even spoken. They sense the change in tone, the shift in energy, the motive behind the message. They feel lies in their body like discomfort. They feel truth like clarity. And this internal compass becomes stronger than any manipulation the narcissist could ever attempt. The empath begins trusting this compass, honoring it, following it, and this makes them immune to the narcissist's tactics. This is the moment the narcissist's weakness becomes exposed, not their fake confidence, but the truth they have spent their entire life hiding. Their fear of being discovered, their fear of losing control, their fear of being seen for who they truly are. When the empath sees through the lies, the narcissist realizes they have no deeper self to fall back on. Their entire identity was built on illusion, and the empath's intuition is now dissolving that illusion with every insight, every moment of clarity, every refusal to be manipulated. The narcissist panics in ways they cannot show. They grow more intense, more dramatic, more desperate. They try new lies, new tactics, new angles, but nothing works. The empath is no longer the person who once fell for apologies that weren't followed by change. They are no longer the person who believed the narcissist's stories over their own instincts. They are no longer the person who gave chance after chance, hoping for growth from someone who refuses to grow. The narcissist realizes they have lost access, not to the empath's time or presence, but to something far more valuable, their belief. And without belief, manipulation dies. Without manipulation, the narcissist loses power, and without power, their facade collapses. This is the moment the roles reverse. The empath becomes the clear-sighted one, the grounded one, the emotionally intelligent one, the spiritually aligned one. The narcissist becomes the one exposed, confused, unstable, and lost. Because now the empath sees the truth. The narcissist's lies were never a sign of intelligence. They were a sign of fear. Fear of being ordinary, fear of being unlovable, fear of being seen. And when the empath's intuition sharpens enough to see this, they lose all emotional attachment to the narcissist's games. The spell breaks, the illusion shatters, the narcissist stands powerless, and the empath finally steps into the clarity, strength, and self-trust that was always meant for them. There comes a moment in every empath's journey when the shift is so powerful, so divine, so unexplainable, that even the narcissist feels it before you do. A moment when the spiritual world steps forward, places a shield around your soul, and whispers, "Enough, my child is protected now." This is the moment when their dark tactics stop penetrating your light. This is the moment when your glow becomes the mirror that exposes their shame. This is the moment your spiritual protection activates. And when it does, everything changes. They don't tell you this, but narcissists can sense energetic shifts faster than anyone. They feel it the way animals sense an approaching storm. They feel it in their spirit when their hold over someone is slipping. The narcissist starts noticing that the tricks that once worked on you no longer have any effect. The guilt trips fall flat. The manipulation feels forced. The emotional hooks don't catch on to anything anymore because your soul has risen too high for their darkness to reach. This is when they panic, but they hide it behind fake confidence, sarcasm, or anger. They pretend they don't care. They pretend everything is normal, but inside they're terrified because something is happening to you that they cannot control. Your spirit is waking up. Spiritual protection doesn't begin with angels showing up around your bed. It begins with clarity. Suddenly, you can see through their words. You can feel the dishonesty. You can sense the intention behind every sentence. Your intuition becomes sharper, louder, undeniable. You start noticing the energy behind the person instead of the performance in front of you. And the narcissist hates this because their entire power relies on illusions. But illusions don't work on someone who can feel truth in their bones. Your empathy changes too. It stops being a weakness that drains you and becomes a strength that shields you. You no longer absorb their emotions. You no longer feel responsible for their unhappiness. You no longer feel guilty for setting boundaries. Your heart becomes compassionate but not naive, open but not vulnerable, loving but not blind. You operate from a higher consciousness now, one where your energy is sacred, not accessible. And this hits the narcissist harder than any closure, confrontation, or revenge ever could. The narcissist starts losing access to your emotional world. They can't get reactions out of you anymore. Your silence replaces your explanations. Your peace replaces your panic. Your intuition replaces their manipulation. This is spiritual protection working through you. It's the universe cutting the invisible cords they used to pull. It's God strengthening the walls they used to climb. It's your ancestors whispering, "You will not be harmed again." Your glow up, your inner glow, your spiritual glow, becomes the mirror they've spent years running from. Shame. The shame of who they are. The shame of what they've done. The shame of the masks they wear. You don't attack them. You don't expose them. You don't even fight them. Your existence exposes them. Your healing is their humiliation. A super empath's spiritual protection doesn't operate through revenge. It operates through separation. As you rise, the narcissist falls behind, lost, confused, desperate, scrambling for control. They try new tactics. They recycle old patterns. They pull out the good memories. They suddenly become attentive, kind, and emotional. But none of it reaches you because your spirit recognizes the truth. You were never the problem. Their insecurity was. You were never too emotional. They were emotionally empty. You were never too forgiving. They were too entitled. And now that you can finally see it, you can't unsee it. Spiritual protection also brings something else: detachment. You no longer crave their validation. You no longer fear their silence. You no longer chase their approval. You no longer replay conversations in your mind. You feel calmer, stronger, more centered, more connected to yourself and to something greater than yourself. You begin realizing that the relationship drained you spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. You begin accepting that walking away is not betrayal. It's divine instruction. And the narcissist feels this detachment in their soul. It threatens their identity. It destabilizes their ego. It breaks their illusion of superiority. Because if the empath leaves, emotionally, spiritually, or physically, it confirms the one truth they fear the most. They never had real power over you. They only had access. And now that access is gone. When your spiritual protection activates, you start attracting peace instead of chaos, clarity instead of confusion, love instead of trauma, purpose instead of pain. You begin receiving signs, synchronicities, intuitive downloads, warnings, confirmations. You start feeling guided, held, protected, and the narcissist starts feeling exposed, powerless, irrelevant. Because your growth highlights their stagnation. Your healing highlights their brokenness. Your evolution highlights their immaturity. You rise, they sink. You glow, they dim. You transform, they stay the same. This is why your spiritual protection is not just a shield. It's a shift in your spirit, a shift in your destiny, a shift in your energy signature. It's the universe declaring, "This soul has suffered enough." It's your ancestors standing guard. It's God restoring your aura. It's divine justice unfolding quietly but powerfully. And the narcissist can feel it deeply, painfully, spiritually. Because when an empath's protection activates, the narcissist loses the one source of energy they depended on. Your light no longer feeds their darkness. Your forgiveness no longer resets their abuse. Your love no longer heals their wounds. You become unreachable, untouchable, unmanipulable. Your spirit rises higher than their shadow can climb. And that is their ultimate punishment. There comes a moment in every super empath's journey when the pain dissolves, the fog lifts, and the heart finally understands the truth. Healing is not about the narcissist. Healing is about reclaiming yourself. And when that happens, when you finally move on, nothing punishes the narcissist more deeply. Not revenge, not exposure, not confrontation. Nothing hurts them like seeing the one person who once fed their ego, soothed their insecurities, and carried their emotional weight, walk away and rise without them. A super empath doesn't win by hurting the narcissist. They win by outgrowing them. By becoming someone the narcissist can no longer reach, influence, confuse, or control. This is the final punishment. The narcissist doesn't lose because you destroyed them. They lose because they no longer matter to you. At first, the narcissist doesn't believe you'll ever move on. They're convinced you'll stay tied to them forever, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. They believe you'll keep replaying their words, keep missing their presence, keep questioning yourself. They think you'll remain trapped in the same cycle of hope, confusion, and self-blame they kept you in for so long. Narcissists always assume their victims stay wounded. They count on it. They rely on it. But super empaths are different. They heal in silence. They grow in the dark. And when they emerge transformed. Moving on isn't a dramatic moment. It's not a final message. It's not a speech or a confrontation. It's quiet. It's sacred. It happens deep inside your soul. One day you wake up and their voice no longer echoes through your mind. Their opinion no longer defines your worth. Their energy no longer influences your mood. Their absence no longer feels like abandonment. You begin to breathe again, not just survive. You begin to feel again, not just react. You begin to exist again, not just endure. And slowly, something shifts. Your spirit begins to rise. Your confidence returns. Your intuition strengthens. Your sense of self becomes clearer, stronger, unshakable. You start remembering who you were before the trauma, before the gaslighting, before the confusion, before the emotional roller coaster. You remember the softness, the kindness, the strength, the intuition that makes you who you are. And then you begin building a future without them in it. That is the moment the narcissist feels the punishment. It doesn't matter if you're physically gone or still in contact, they feel the emotional shift first. They feel the silence. They feel the detachment. They feel the loss of power. They feel their influence disappearing. And for a narcissist, this is worse than any argument or insult. Narcissists don't fear being disliked, they fear being irrelevant. They don't fear abandonment, they fear losing control. They don't fear rejection, they fear losing supply. And when a super empath moves on, that supply is gone permanently. You stop reacting to them. You stop explaining yourself. You stop caring what they think. You stop defending yourself against their lies. You stop taking their behavior personally. You simply detach. This is emotional freedom, and narcissists cannot stand it. They try to pull you back with fake kindness, sudden crises, guilt trips, silent treatment, jealousy tactics, or I miss you messages. They try to provoke you, flatter you, or confuse you, anything to make you feel something. They don't care if your emotions are positive or negative. They care that you are still emotionally tied to them, because your emotions are their oxygen. But when they finally realize you no longer respond, no longer engage, no longer care, that's when they break. They'll never show it, but inside, the collapse is real. A narcissist cannot handle the truth that the very person they tried to destroy ended up healing, that the person they underestimated outgrew them, that the person they thought they owned walked away and became stronger. Your healing exposes their weakness. Your peace exposes their chaos. Your growth exposes their stagnation. Your self-respect exposes their lack of self-worth. And the greatest punishment for a narcissist is knowing you now see them clearly, not as powerful, not as impressive, not as superior, but as insecure, emotionally stunted, and spiritually empty. You see the truth, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Moving on is not just leaving the narcissist behind. It's leaving the version of yourself that tolerated them. It's leaving the trauma that kept you connected to them. It's leaving the belief that you needed them. It's leaving the idea that their love meant anything. You reclaim your time, your energy, your identity, your destiny. You stop shrinking. You stop doubting. You stop explaining. You stop apologizing for who you are. And that terrifies the narcissist, because they always believed you would stay damaged, but you didn't. You became wiser, softer, stronger, more intuitive, more powerful, more aligned with your purpose. You became someone they can never manipulate again, someone they can never fool again, someone they can never reach again. The narcissist is left with the emptiness they tried to fill with your energy. They're left alone with their insecurities, their shame, their patterns, their darkness. And they know, deep down, that you moved on not because you found someone else, not because you wanted revenge, not because you stopped loving, but because you finally started loving yourself. And for a narcissist, there is no greater punishment. Because when a super empath moves on, the narcissist loses everything: their supply, their power, their illusion, their control, and most importantly, the person who kept forgiving them, understanding them, and loving them beyond what they ever deserved. You didn't break them by fighting. You broke them by healing. You didn't win by hurting them. You won by outgrowing them. And you didn't punish them by seeking revenge. You simply punished them by moving on.